Jesus is both God and he's God's son. Why? Because one is talking about who he is and one is talking about what he is. For example, I am Ryan. That's who I am. But I am a human being. That's what I am. Can I be both Ryan and a human being at the same time? Yeah, absolutely. Because
You see, this is one of the worst analogy I've ever seen. One of the worst I've ever seen. You cannot be the Son of God and be God at the same time. And you can't be God and be the Son of God at the same time. So you are either the Son of God or you're God. It's like saying, I am the Son of my Father and I am also my Father. This is totally wrong. And that's why he brought that example. Ryan, the Son of my Father, and also I'm a human being. This is who I am and this is what I am. But then when it comes to Jesus, he said Jesus is the Son of God and what he is God. These are the same category and they can't work together. Jesus is the Son of God and what he is a man according to the Bible. So he is a human being. So going further, let's see what he has next to say.
But what is Jesus made up of? Like, what is his substance? What is he? He's God. He's all powerful. He's all knowing. He's omnipresent. All those sort of attributes. Jesus has them all.
It's quite funny. You see, he made mention of three things. Okay, no, four things. He said, number one, God, and the reason why he's God. Okay, number two, he's all powerful. Number three, he's all knowing. And number four, he is omnipresent, meaning he's everywhere. Okay, so we are going to refute these in just minutes. First and foremost, God. Jesus never said he is God in the entire of the Bible. The Bible as a whole, Jesus never said he is God, or he never said worship me. Because when you tell people worship me, it means you are claiming to be God. So he never said worship me. The reports that you would see that people bow down to worship Jesus is just an act of love. For example, when we look at the definition of worship, it could be extreme love for something. For example, you see money worship, okay, and all that. But then if you still insist, then we would have to bring Daniel into the book. Daniel has to be God too, because the king worshipped Daniel, despite knowing that Daniel has a God that has done this miracle before him. He still bow and worship Daniel. So we have to bring Daniel to the equation. Now, God, there's no place in the Bible. I already quoted John 17:3 and I said, John 17:3, Jesus specifically said, the Father is the only true God. Now he's taken himself out of the equation that I am not God. The only true God is the Father. Some people might say, but Jesus said, before Abraham, I am. And then he's claiming to be God here. Then you would have to bring the blind man into the equation because the blind man also used the same Greek word as Jesus, ego eimi. But why the double standard? When it comes to Jesus, Jesus claims to be God. But when it comes to this blind man healed by Jesus, of course, no, he's not claiming to be God. Why the double standard? So now we would have to bring this man into the equation. This man has to be God for saying ego eimi. Some people might also say that, but then in John 1:1 would see, the word was with God and the word was God. So here, literally, Jesus is God because Jesus became flesh and dwells amongst us. Then it is also good that the devil has to be brought into the equation because we would see in the scripture that the devil is the God of the world, and the same word theos was used for the devil. The same word used for Jesus was used for the devil. Why again the double standard? When it comes to Jesus, the big G is used, but when it comes to the devil, the small g is used. Why the double standard? Look at the translation. That's why some would say, if only the Christians understand the Greek language or the Hebrew language, they wouldn't see the Bible the way they are seeing the Bible at the moment. They only see the Bible this way because they depend on the translations. And these guys translating the Bible do a total disservice to the people. They are preying on the ignorance of the people. A lot of Christians don't understand Greek. They don't understand Hebrew. And these are the languages of your scripture. So going further, he said all powerful. Now, we would realize when we look at the scripture that Jesus is not all powerful. Why would I say so? Would have to go back to John 5:19. And it says, so Jesus replied, truly, truly, I tell you, the Son can do nothing by himself unless he sees the Father doing it. For whatever the Father does, the Son also does. Here, Jesus is saying the Son can do nothing, literally nothing of himself until he sees what the Father is doing. So Jesus is totally dependent on the Father. And when you are dependent on something, this totally cancels you being God. God doesn't depend on anything. It is like a student-teacher relationship. The student can only do what the teacher does, but then the teacher can do whatever he wills. So when the student is dependent on the teacher, the student cannot be the teacher because he is dependent on the teacher. Okay, and if this is not enough, we'd have to go to John 10 verse 29. It says, my Father who has given them to me is greater than all. No one can snatch them out of my Father's hand. Jesus in chapter 10, when we go further, after chapter 5, when we go to chapter 10, we'll see Jesus literally saying that my Father is greater than all. including himself. So someone would say, but then look at the next verse. Jesus literally said, I and the Father are one. Of course, he said, I and the Father are one. And how do we understand this? When we look at the context of these verses, we would understand this. Jesus meant one in purpose, just like how, the wife and the husband are one in purpose, just like how a nation, despite different people, are united as one. Okay, so this is what Jesus meant. And if you still insist that no, it is one, as in one Trinity and all that, then let's go further into chapter 14 and see what Jesus literally said there. So let's go to verse 28. Jesus said, you heard me say, I am going away, and I am coming back to you. For you loved me, you would rejoice that I am going to the Father, because the Father is greater than I. Now, going forward, Jesus said, the Father is greater than I. It gives us an understanding that what he said initially was, the Father and I are one in purpose, because before this verse, Jesus literally said, I can of myself do nothing, showing that the Father is greater than him. And Jesus also said, the Father is greater than all, including himself. And if you don't understand that, because the next verse said, I and the Father are one, Jesus further said later, because this is chapter 14, he further said later, reminding the disciples, reminding the people that the Father is greater than I, in case you think I'm not included in that, the Father is greater than all. The Father is greater than I. And this is as clear as the Son. Obviously, Jesus is not all powerful. And then going further, he said Jesus is all knowing. We'd have to go to the book of Matthew, to the Gospel of Matthew, and see what Jesus said there. In Matthew 24, verse 36, Jesus said, but about that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, not the Son, but only the Father. So this literally proves that Jesus is not all knowing, because he doesn't know the hour. Only the Father, and this shows continuously that the Father is the only true God. The Father is all-knowing. These are the qualities of God. And Jesus, times without number, the scripture itself is proving to us that Jesus possessed none of these characteristics. And lastly, he said Jesus is omnipresent. In other words, Jesus is everywhere. He knows everything. Okay, so we'll have to go to the scripture again and see if truly Jesus is everywhere or he knows everything. We'd have to go to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 21, 18 to 19. It says, in the morning, as Jesus was returning to the city, he was hungry. Jesus was hungry. 19. See the fig tree by the road. He went up to it, but found nothing on it except leaves. May you never bear fruit again, he said, and immediately the tree withered. So as you can see, Jesus is not omnipresent. He's not everywhere. If he was everywhere, he would have known that this tree has no fruits. But then he was hungry. He saw a tree and thought this tree has fruits. He went there to see for himself. To see for himself. In other words, he is not there. So he had to go there and see for himself to pluck some fruits. On reaching there, he realized this tree bears no fruit. He became provoked and cursed the tree. Obviously, clearly, Jesus is not omnipresent. He is not everywhere. If he was, he would have known this, and this is as clear as the daylight. He has promised. This guy has nothing of the scripture to back his claim. It's all sayings. Jesus is this, Jesus is that. We have to believe that. I understand that people want Jesus to be God, but then that's not, reality. We have to face reality. We have to go back to scriptures. We have to look at the scriptures. What does the scripture say regarding who Jesus is, what he is? And, this is exactly what we've done. It's left for you to either go back and read and try to understand these things, or continue in your ignorance until you meet your creator. With this, I say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.